Hello there, my name's Mark Stubbs. I'm Professor and Head of Learning and Research Technologies at Manchester Metropolitan University, and I'm very sorry I can't be with you today. In this brief case study, what I was going to do was talk through some of the developments that we've been making around mobile at MMU, and in particular some of the research that we've been doing with our students to try and understand, what the particular requirements are. For those of you who aren't familiar, MMU is a large multi-campus university. We've got a lot of students and we're spread across a number of sites. As you'll see from the picture in front of you, we're investing in some very nice buildings at the moment. And you might also have heard that we're going through a very major change program. We've been refreshing our curriculum, we've brought in new admin processes, new systems, new timetabling, we've switched our VLE to Moodle, we've supported all that stuff with a range of mobile technologies. We've also been looking at our business processes, particularly around quality, and we're keen for all of those developments to complement the building work that we've been doing. So that just puts MMU in context for a moment, and I think one of the things that's also important to stress is our approach to coping with all this change is really been about partnering. When it comes to the mobile development, we've worked with other universities. Conscious Jules is in the audience, and we've worked with Staffordshire and Bradford and Plymouth to sort of develop a set of questions that we can pool to try and see whether the respondents that answered our survey, whether they had similarities in what they were saying to the colleagues across the sector. I think it's also important to stress that we've been very fortunate in having JISC support to take forward some of the more ambitious service-oriented and shared service development that we've been undertaking. And of course, we couldn't have done any of this without some of the shared service partners that we've been working with, in particular ULCC for Moodle, and OnBeal for some of the Campus M mobile work, Talis Aspire for some of the reading list activity that we've been doing as well. I think one of the things that we were very keen to do was to target our mobile efforts at the things that students would most value. Now, in order to understand that, we've adopted a sort of multi-method approach of triangulating the data we get back from surveys with focus groups and interviews. As I mentioned earlier, we agreed a standard set of questions with a number of colleagues at other universities which focused on things like what devices people own, do they feel that they're on the right kind of contract, or does that impose some limitations on how they can use the device, what do they use it for, how have they used it in the past in a learning environment, what are the preferences that students would like to see, and what are their priorities for university developments. Now, as a professor, I guess I should emphasise that this isn't a particularly statistically valid sample, in that we placed this survey on the front page of our student portal, and we didn't make it mandatory, so therefore we have a self-selecting and biased sample of respondents. We have a reasonable response rate. When we ran it in 2010, we had 980 students. And when I put these slides together, we had 240. We're now up at about 260, I think, in the last couple of days. So, our current survey is still live. There are more details of the approach and some of the questions and things on our JISC blog, which you'll see flagged there. In a nutshell, we've seen surprisingly stable results across the 2 years. Smartphone ownership seems to be growing. Last year, the sort of £10 BlackBerry deal seemed to have swung it for BlackBerry, but this year Apple's edged back on top. Seen a growth in Android all round. I think perhaps the biggest jump there. In terms of what people want, it's the admin stuff, personalised, where I'm meant to be. When's my work due in? If those things change, please can you let me know? What are the announcements from my tutor? When are my books due back? Do I need to find a big machine? And if so, where's the nearest one? Those are the kind of things that really come through consistently across the two surveys. And interestingly, some of the things when we talk to the students, email consistently above Facebook in terms of a technology that students say they use, several times a day. So interesting findings buried in this survey, and at some point when we find time, no doubt we'll be able to get them out in a proper paper. Just a little breakdown there on the reported device ownership. We managed to match 964 of the students to put their characteristics into age range analysis and gender stuff. And as you'll see from those stats, BlackBerry was particularly common amongst younger female respondents. A lot of multi-device ownership. Quite a few students said, well, we've got a BlackBerry for messaging and an iPod Touch for apps and music, and that was quite an interesting finding that we saw, which as the age profile increased and I don't know whether patience wore thin or money was more available, some of the iPod Touches were replaced with a single device of owning an iPhone. Interestingly, Android ownership, last year at least, seemed to be reasonably gendered, seemed to be particularly more popular amongst with the males in the 20 to 39 category than the females. So that's just a quick snapshot of device ownership that we saw. We also did a series of interviews with the students. We tried to select students based on to reflect the sort of course and gender balance that we have in MMU as a whole. We talked to the students in the library, asked them what course they were on, and then based on that their response, we asked some of them to follow on with the interview. We based the interview on the technology they had with them at the time and how they used it. We've got some very, very interesting stuff, and again, as I say, once we get time to write all this up properly, we'll no doubt be sharing with with colleagues. Some of the interesting findings really were that students tended to have mobile with them all the time, and they used it very frequently. But when it came to actually doing work, not a big surprise, then actually it'd be less frequent use, more intensive use, and that would then shift onto typically a laptop, or desktop computer if students were doing some of the work within the university's drop-in facilities. Interestingly enough, with these interviews, whilst we thought that our sample of 980 students was sort of biased towards those who might be more technically oriented, with this sort of stop and ask survey, we found that the findings about 50% smartphone ownership were supported in this survey as well. So certainly for last year, maybe that wasn't a bad picture of the state of play within our university. One of the things that we've asked this year, based on on analysis of the interview data, was about the sort of use of mobile that students had while they were studying. Interestingly, again, the admin things are dominating, checking deadlines, making sure that they've got on the right timetable, those kinds of things. But there was also a second category of messaging fellow students to discuss, arrange group work, those kinds of things. And quite a high percentage of what you might term building your own personal study environment, blocking out noise around you by listening to music while working, that came through pretty strongly actually as something that students said they did with their mobile while learning. And as you see from the other stats, in terms of actually accessing learning materials, following up references, taking notes, those sort of more interactive elements of using mobile within learning are less dominant, certainly within the sample of students that we spoke to. Now, I must stress that this is preliminary results. We've not yet completed the data collection with the students, and it's not yet fully analysed, but just wanted to share those early insights with you. I think really the other thing to share is what we're doing in response. We've been listening to these calls for e-admin for some time, so the first thing we wanted to do was make sure that we were able to deliver on that. So we've put a lot of effort into developing personalised web services that can pump through that data that students have been asking for. We've been working with our hosting partners ULCC to develop the VLE web services, in particular working alongside Ombile to develop what you might term Moodle M, or a mobile Moodle set of web services that can power mobile devices and take Moodle content and put that right into students' hands. I think this was part of a general sort of drive to give students access to a range of channels. We've as I said, we've been working on the Campus M side, but we've also been seeing a huge level of also not huge, but surprising level of hits on non-mobile optimized websites from mobile devices. So we wanted to be sure that as we introduced Moodle that it would work on a range of different devices. And interestingly enough, as part of that development work, we found that the UE libraries, the Yahoo libraries, seem to be rather better on older mobiles than the jQuery ones that seem to be the focus for a lot of mobile development. See from this shot that back over the summer we did a lot of testing on a range of different devices. Apologies for the shaky photo, but it was taken with the BlackBerry that I was also testing with at the time. So you see us trying on tablets and netbooks as well as laptops and things to do our new Moodle theme that we partnered with one of the Manchester's creative digital community, Magnetic North, to help us get a clean sort of accessible look and feel onto our Moodle site. This slide in a way is trying to show just how much effort we're putting in to creating the right conditions for an effective mobile strategy. We currently we've put a lot of effort into making sure that we've got web services that can deliver the things that students want. So whether it's their deadlines or confirmation of their enrollment status or the timetable, past examination papers, reading lists, we've been building web services onto our core systems that we can then pull together and surface wherever those things are required, whether it's in Moodle, whether we can pull some of those things through onto Campus M, or whether we'd be exposing it in the SharePoint student portal that we have. We've put a lot of work into preparing the ground really for those things. In terms of where it goes next, a lot of this work at the stage where it can be pulled together into a more coherent mobile strategy. The reason we want to do that is we want to make it clear to both staff and students where we're going with this stuff so that they can see how they can contribute. We teach courses on mobile development within the university. It would be lovely to open up some of these APIs and see what the students can develop, as some of our colleagues at other universities have done. All of those things become a lot more possible when you've pulled things together and got them well documented, and the university as a whole has got a clear strategy of what it's doing about that. I think there's still more work to do in terms of getting our service-orientated architecture there, in terms of being able to deliver exactly what students want on a variety of platforms. I think we're also keen to build on the work that we've started in terms of surveying and doing focus groups and interviews with our students, so that we can be alive to the sort of new patterns of use that are emerging. And I think above all, what we're keen to do is to tackle all of this stuff in a holistic way, because we're conscious that, for example, in a classroom, what's possible in there is a combination of the kit that's in the room plus the kit that people bring in, that's both staff and students, plus the imagination and the confidence that people have for using that technology. So we're trying to look at all of these things in terms of making sure that what the university provides complements students' own technology and delivers those things that students will get most value from. So as I say, apologies that I can't be there in person today, but I hope this brief case study has been useful to you. Thanks for listening. Bye.